How's it going, good people? Today on the agenda, I will be talking about why the applications that you build and or support need to have a maintenance window. My name is Kenny, and this is Tech Talk with RHT Services, where I talk about software development, web development, and all kinds of other things related to tech. Now, when I worked as a level 2 support or application support person, one of the things that we had to do in that role was to eventually come up with what is known as a maintenance window. Now, a maintenance window, the way it was utilized in that context was that if work needed to be done, let's say a operating system patch needed to be installed, that operating system patch would be scheduled to be installed within that maintenance window. That way, any restarts or anything else that needed to be done during that time frame would be done. And in the worst case scenario, the patch would be rolled back also within that time frame. So you pretty much had to specify what was the acceptable window that this type of work could be done. And that way, the infrastructure teams or whoever else did not have to come to the application support team, who was myself and my teammates, and ask, hey, we need to do this in update. When can we do it? It was already defined. Once the maintenance window was set for that application, that's when any time that work needed to be done, and they could do it within that time frame and not have to request permission. However, we were notified of when those things were being done, just in case something happened after, or something was realized after that work had been done, and we could request it to be rolled back or something else of that nature. Now, for where I was working at, the maintenance window had to be a minimum of 4 hours. And this is for every application in the enterprise. Now, it didn't matter when those 4 hours were. They could be 4 hours on a Sunday from 2 to 6. It could be 4 hours on a Saturday, 5 to 9, whatever. But it had to be at least 4 hours. And it was based upon each individual's application's workflow. So one of the applications I had a maintenance window once a month. I think there were several applications that had multiple maintenance windows, but we had to define at least 4 hours once a month where that application could be taken down and any work could be done. So one of the applications, because of how it was set up, it could do maintenance windows from 8 to 12 on Fridays. I believe it was the third Friday of the month. Now, coincidentally, that same time frame was also when the application server was scheduled to reboot, because it would only reboot once a month. And so pretty much anytime any operating system updates needed to be installed, any versions of like Python or any other Java or SQL application stuff, any type that stuff that had to be installed would be installed during that time frame. If more time was needed, whoever was installing it, so database team, infrastructure team, etc., would then have to request that additional time for that, so that the necessary application process could be stopped and or held or whatever case. Also, upstream and downstream systems could be notified that, hey, we're not going to be running because this is going to be happening. So hold your jobs or hold the data that you're sending to us until after everything is done, and then we'll tell you when it can be turned back on. Now, why is this important? Well, security is a very vital component, more so than ever, because of the fact there's a continued effort to protect the systems. A lot of systems nowadays have issues mainly because of the fact the patches or updates are not being kept up to date and applied in a timely fashion. So if you have open source software, if you have even closed source software, and you're not applying those patches, you are essentially putting things, whether it be in your enterprise or even at your home for that matter, at risk. And so one thing that I've attempted to do is to schedule when some of these things get applied on the various systems. I also have considered doing automations for the checking to see if an update isn't available. And if an update is available, for that automation to be able to apply it without me having to manually remember to do it or manually actually going and doing it. And so one of the examples of this would be the hwne that I have installed on my home network. Those updates, they don't come out a lot, but they do come out. And you can go to the go via the web to the hwne device to see, hey, is there an update available? Because the hwne device will go and check and see if an update is available. The problem is the odds of me logging into the web version of the home run device is rare. Like, I may log into it maybe once or twice a year just to have it rescan all the channels when I move the antenna. But, you know, I'm not moving the antenna all the time, so I'm not doing it frequently. But one automation that I said I was going to implement was that when it goes there, it is to check to see if there's an update available. And if it sees the updated button there, to go ahead and click it and install the updates. It can send me a notification after the fact that it did it, but, you know, making sure that it stays up to date is perfectly fine. The thing with that, though, is I don't want it to update in the middle of the day because of the fact I might be watching TV. Might be watching sports on a Saturday, Sunday, whatever the case may be. Might be watching the news. I don't want the news to just all of a sudden out of nowhere cut out and only to find out, oh, your automation ran and decided to apply updates. So setting a maintenance window for something like that would be useful. That, okay, if this does run, it should run, let's say, between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, when there's a great chance that I'm probably asleep and not watching TV. Or there's a great chance there's nothing on TV at that time anyway, so I probably wouldn't be watching TV. So being able to do it like that is very useful. Another example is that I have a router on my home network, and that router being scheduled to reboot itself at least once a week. So I know the maintenance, I know the time for it to be scheduled, but if I set it there and then anything else related to the network, I can also have it reboot after that router reboots. So for example, if I have, let's say, a firewall that needs to be rebooted on a regular basis. Let's say the router reboots first. Once the router comes back online, have the firewall reboot, or in a different order, have the firewall first, or maybe even go at the same time. That way they all go down together and they all come back up together. But so the point being is that when you build your applications, put a maintenance window in there, because you're going to need to want to install updates. You're going to do releases. One thing with the releases is trying to find, at least from my L2 experience, was trying to find a time where the data was not being processed, because a lot of the applications I supported back then were ran off of scheduled jobs. They were not necessarily event driven. So they would do batch processing, as it was referred to, where the data would be sent from one system to the system I supported, and then at a scheduled time, that batch of data would then be loaded into the system to do whatever other processing and to be sent to other locations or other systems in the, you know, as part of that processing. So being able to put those maintenance windows in there said, hey, all right, there's no processing at this time. We can do whatever we need to do without having to manually stop and start all these other processes. Now, could we have put automations in place? Yes. Is it better to schedule it so that you do not have to manually do not have to create those automations? Yes. The reason being is because when you have automations, then you now have to make sure that those automations are working and those automations themselves do not have vulnerabilities, thus making the maintenance of just one application or server more risky, if you will. So that is some thoughts about maintenance and application maintenance and how you can schedule things to work in a timely manner. If you have any comments or questions about application maintenance, hey, drop a comment down below. I love to hear some thoughts. And also, if you have any suggestions for future videos as it relates to working with tech or working in tech, you can leave those down in the comment section below as well. Please be sure to subscribe and follow. And last but not least, more content is available at rhtservices.net. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.